4 weeks before the wedding, she, f37, suddenly doesn't want children. I am m37. My fiancé, 37F, and I, 37M, are on the verge of getting married. We've known each other for 3 years, and our relationship has been going smoothly. I think she's a great person. I appreciate many qualities in her. She's educated, intelligent, kind, and has a great sense of humor. When she talks, I hang on her every word. She has been in Germany for 12 years and speaks fluent German. Originally hailing from Uzbekistan, one thing that bothers me a bit is that she's had 6 ex-boyfriends, all in long-distance relationships. She keeps the details about these relationships and their quality a closely guarded secret. I don't even know their names. The past is the past, she says. It bothers me because I've always been completely open with her about my past long-term relationships. 3. I'm sharing this not as a point of contention but to provide context. Moving on. She is a child of divorce. Her mother separated from her father because she fell in love with someone else. Her stepfather came into the family when my fiancé was just 1 year old and was presented as her real father until she reached puberty. It was only when she was 15 that her 5-year older sister was brought in to tell her the truth. Around that time, or shortly thereafter, I'm not sure, her mother separated from her stepfather. Due to these family complications, she went from living in relatively normal circumstances, initially with her biological father, to very wealthy circumstances, stepfather, and then almost poverty after the separation. Consequently, she now has significant financial anxiety and carefully budgets every cent. Her personal savings are crucial to her, and she won't even spend them herself. When I met her, she lived like a student and avoided spending money. She went to Russia for her studies at the age of 17 and then moved to Germany 12 years ago. She is generally an independent person, but not in the sense of a tough businesswoman. More like a regular woman who knows how to handle herself and isn't overwhelmed by things like moving. Paradoxically, she has a low tolerance for problems and gives up quickly if things can't be resolved immediately. She tends to take the easiest path, even if it might put her in a worse position in the long run. For instance, at the beginning of our relationship, she quit her job, a permanent contract. The new job offer was for a fixed-term contract. I believe that, given her age and professional experience, she should not accept a fixed-term contract and should negotiate. But she immediately accepted it. It was only through my persistent persuasion that she finally negotiated and got a permanent contract. In short, she wants security, stability, routine, and no stress, especially financial security. During the honeymoon phase of our relationship, she expressed a desire to have children. This was a criterion for both of us. However, after the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Ukraine crisis, her stance shifted to more of a, well, let's see, this world is really messed up. But since she learned that due to our high income and the currently discussed lower income threshold, we won't receive parental leave benefits, she's been very anxious. This needs further explanation. We do have savings, and we could manage without parental leave benefits, especially with more of the savings on her side. I invested my savings in buying a property, but even with my income and remaining savings alone, we would be fine. However, she's worried about tapping into the savings, particularly with rising prices and inflation. She spirals into irrational fear, thinking children are expensive, troublesome, and what if they face problems at school or even worse in the future? She believes we won't even get a spot in daycare. There's war. What if one of us becomes unemployed or falls ill? And so on. In short, for her, having a child has become an unbearable source of insecurity. She told me yesterday that she doesn't want children. Apart from the financial aspect, I don't have much to argue against her decision. She knows our financial situation well, so there's no real risk here. But beyond that, all I have is the feeling and desire to have a child. So, what to do? Not get married? Why bother? Especially since it's primarily for children. But I know it would be the end of the relationship since she really wants to get married. It provides her with a sense of security. Get married with a very strict prenuptial agreement? Again, why bother? I want children. She doesn't. This would violate a fundamental precondition we discussed beforehand. On the other hand, I love her. Separate? Well, kids are a deal breaker. No marriage. Find someone who wants kids. Sadly, children are likely your breaking point. Combine that with your ages and you don't have a lot of time to try to hope she will reconsider. Her concerns are valid and somewhat founded. Children are a huge commitment and expense. The world is crazy. That's almost always been true. In the best case, having children is often a combination of faith and temporary insanity. They're wonderful and exhausting and miraculous and frustrating and so on. Most critically, they should only be had when both parents want them. Reddit and the news are full of heartbreaking stories of what life is like when couples aren't on the same page, especially when it comes to children. You can love someone deeply, but when your goals are misaligned, unhappiness generally results. I hope you can work things out, but it sounds like this is either the end of your dreams of becoming a parent or your relationship. 80% of this information wasn't necessary, lol. You both agreed on kids. She changed her kind. You're no longer compatible. End of story. I think a lot of people figure they'll have kids at some point due to societal pressure. Then when they really think about it and what having kids looks like realistically, some people choose not to have kids. It's not that they lied. They just changed their mind when they examined the impacts. I think a lot of men like the idea of having kids. But often, they have a romanticized vision of what that looks like. They're thinking about tossing a ball in the backyard, coaching a team, taking the kids to fun places, etc. They aren't thinking about changing dirty diapers, being sleep deprived, helping with homework, playing taxi, doing the day-to-day parenting, etc. For us women, we think about things like the impacts to our bodies through pregnancy and birth, some of which are permanent, the risk of death, the impacts to our careers and lifelong earning potential. We think about what it looks like to be the primary parent and how our partner may get to carry on with their hobbies and friends like before children, but we likely cannot. Also, at her current age, if she were to get pregnant, it's considered a geriatric pregnancy with higher risk of complications for mom and baby. If having kids is a requirement for you, then don't get married. Break up, and date someone younger who enthusiastically wants kids. But coercing someone into having kids when they don't want them rarely turns out well. I know several people, men and women, who were given the ultimatum of kids or it's over, and had kids to save the relationship. All of them are good parents and love their kids, but they don't particularly like parenting and became resentful, and all are divorced. It seems to me that your fiancé has a lot of anxieties about life in general and could benefit from some individual therapy. Perhaps it would make sense to postpone the wedding. Have her do individual therapy, then couples counseling for you together, and give it a year before making a decision. But in summary, kids aren't something you can compromise on. Both partners need to be enthusiastic about the idea. Well, her fears are not irrational. Kids are expensive and troublesome, and you already plan on using her savings for that. But your goals become incompatible. Discuss it again and call off wedding since kids are deal breaker. Poor girl. It will add to her feelings of unstable world. I hope her savings will allow her at least buy some place for her. She needs that. Almost all of this post in context is completely pointless. The bottom line is children are a deal breaker. You either have them or you don't, and you shouldn't force the other person to have or not have them, so you either both agree 100% or not at all. Sounds like this relationship can't last. You want different things that you can't compromise on. First off, marriage is not primarily for children. I am child-free and still want to get married someday. Marriage is about the union of two people, and no, you don't have to get married to have a good union. Legally, it can just help. Second off, you don't want the same things in life. You want a child in the future and she does not. You are no longer compatible. If you want children and that's a deal breaker, then it's not the right relationship for you. In your next relationship, try not to analyze everything your partner does. Everything else you've said about her past relationships and childhood doesn't matter or relate to the issue, which is that you want different things. Don't try to change her. Don't try to pry information out of her about her other relationships. Don't marry her, thinking she's going to turn into the person you want to be with. You answered your own question with your options. You want children. She doesn't. That's non-negotiable. You need to separate. At a minimum, postpone the wedding. That will give you guys time to think things through. It is much less embarrassing to postpone a wedding 1 month before than to get divorced after 6 months. Marrying a 37-year-old woman who wants children is no guarantee she will get pregnant and have a successful pregnancy. If you value having children over being with this woman, then I guess you should not get married. Also, not sure how many boyfriends you think a woman who has had 20 dating years should have had. Many single women at 37 have been divorced or have had boyfriends. This seems like a very bizarre sticking point. It actually sounds like you would prefer to be with someone who has the childbearing capabilities and past dating history of a woman in her 20s, but the education, life experience and high income of a woman her age. Not sure what a strict prenuptial agreement would do if your main goal of getting married is to have children. If this is what you see as the most important outcome of a marriage, then you should find a different person to marry. Can't compromise on kids, you have to go your separate ways. That's a fundamental deal breaker. You want kids. She doesn't. Why did you include the weird info about her exes though? That provides zero context and is not relevant in any way. Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're done. This is pretty much a deal breaker. Since when is marriage primarily for children? What happened to it being for love? If you still want children and she isn't budging, do not get married. You're no longer compatible. Her reasons are irrelevant. The fact remains that you are polar opposites on one of the most fundamental aspects of a partnership. You are no longer a partnership. You are two people living together who no longer want the same things. Do not marry her. End the relationship. You no longer want the same things in life. She spirals into irrational fear, thinking children are expensive, troublesome, and what if they face problems at school or even worse in the future? She believes we won't even get a spot in daycare. There's war. What if one of us becomes unemployed or falls ill? And so on. Literally, in what way are those irrational fears? Kids are permanent. You can't just get rid of them when life gets hard. You'd both be 60 before they move out. And it's not like many people don't suffer illness or instability before that age. And the apartment, is her name on that? Probably not. It's not an irrational fear to imagine you two getting a divorce and being suddenly poor and homeless with a baby daddy who is only a weekend dad. Especially with you wanting her to spend her carefully kept emergency savings on the kid. When they are meant for the day you might leave her or a real emergency pops up. If you think her fears are irrational and they aren't something you've thought and worried about yourself, you're not mature enough to be a parent. You're thinking fun days of kicking a ball around with your toddler. She's thinking of the real day-to-day slump and very real struggles of being a responsible parent. If she hadn't changed her mind and you guys tried for 3 years to have a baby with no success, would you stay married to her? If the point of this union is children, then you need to call it off. It didn't guarantee that you'll find someone you connect with as well, but it will save you both years of frustration because you aren't compatible. Call it off. If you want kids, this isn't the relationship for you.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.